The Lord is about to evidence to some people in these streets that it's over, Lankutla. He's going to rapture the body of Christ. And this Karabo that you've been thinking is chilling at a bus stop, getting all dry, growing cobwebs, getting skeletonized. You're going to discover that I wasn't waiting in vain. I was waiting on the Son of Man. And according to him, listen, neither ear has heard, nor mind conceived, nor eye seen. The things which God prepares for those who just wag vir hom. Hulle wag vir hom. Hulle wag vir hom. They just chill, they blom, they make like a period, a full stop. But hulle ba em. Ba has it alabantu. On the side of the road in the yellow lane. Something about the Kaka, go yellow lane. Uno driver past that car. Go highway. That spot where that car was at, it's gonna be gone. Those hazards are an indication that they're waiting for rescue. They're waiting for the AA. They're waiting for a towing company. They're waiting for their brother, their sister to come and tow them away. Or to bring them a skupuse petrol. Kaka. If you go back after 2 hours to that very same spot where there is a car in the yellow lane, on the highway, it'll be gone. There are things that evidence that umuntu umele something is hosa. Tina as abazalwane ke, we've got hazards on, y'all. And because we're stuck on the side of the road, you think no one is coming, but one day you're gonna drive past that same spot again and realize that uhambi. Le moto le that was parked here, the yellow lane by landila, asazi by what? Either towing truck or bamuksidise skupusa petrol. Or something, something just let you move that car. Guys, you're not the same car that's hazarding on the side of the street on the highway. If umuntu does not fetch it, when you go back after the next day and the next day and the next day, izolandwa either state, something is gonna fetch it. Either izotshontshwa ngabantu or the state is going to hire the towing company by his baloy impound koloya thing. Mara is not gonna stay on the highway. And abazalwane are all over yellow lane, yellow highway. In single file, like in chock-a-block bumper to bumper traffic, and all of y'all that are driving, speeding up and down the N1 highway, packed on the side of the road where instead of our lives moving, these takis, well, ntwesa are failing at all. And so therefore, if we don't get taken by God, either or the state is going to cause us to get towed and impounded, our vehicles stripped or sold at auction, because the muntu azangu abuya for imoto yakhona, and these are roads of the country, and there are rules, there are bylaws, there are regulations. You don't just get to leave your car on the side of the street. Izothathwa usatan. And it's written in Psalm 125 that the scepter of the wicked shall not remain on the land allotted to the righteous, lest the righteous should turn aside their hands to do evil. Therefore, if God leaves his saints for too long, sizothathwa vele ngusatan. In Matthew 24 it is written, if God does not cut the days of sorrow short, no flesh would be saved, but for the sake of the elect he cuts the days short. Something that is hazarding without somebody coming and tow it. And seeing as God is jealous for us, he's not gonna allow Usatan to be the one to guide us into our homes and take us. He won't let the devil to be the one to come and tow us off the side of the street. I'm not going back to a life I don't want to go back to. I'm not going back to a ministry that don't make no sense, where people were persecuting me. I'm not going back to a family that don't care about me, that don't care about my God and my convictions, and the fact that they've done witchcraft, that are gaslighting the living daylights out of me, that want me to consider this to be water under the bridge. I am not going back to any of that. God, Bangi Bugila on some part, where is your God? Exactly, Psalm 42. You're saying of me, aha. Where is my God? Yeah, well, at the opportune time, just as you're doing the 4th round around that particular spot, as East Gebengu, as Igenza, as a Pablo Escobar, a little bit of a ipantiti, a carjacker, as somewhat of a carjacker. When you go back around to peruse that spot to see if that car is still there at midnight, and if at all it's still there, you're going there now, you're going there now to say, Pume motweni putwam siya tatale motos kosi yabonu kutawifun, we pagile highway in, and seeing as aguna zini moto, in the afternoon, it's now 12 p.m., it's now 1 a.m. in the morning. So just when that Ginza goes up and down for the last check to see if that motor is still there, uzobuya, and the car's not going to be there. Or imoto akona izovele, just as he's driving past the 4th time at 12:30 at night. Beso yapaga behind lo muntu, paga behind lo muntu. Ikazi, ifamily, 4x4, something etomolata. Paga behind this person. Rescue. Then you will go back with your driver thinking that you could have carjacked a vehicle and gotten something for mahala. You are staking out my house. You've seen that my vehicle is stuck on the side of the highway, but understand I'm not the only one. Swaning, as children of the living God, you have harassed us, you have abused us, and you keep on literally perusing, staking out. and telling yourself it's only a matter of time before we settle. It's only a matter of time before we ABC. And you know what? It is truly indeed only a matter of time before Satan takes our cars to the impound. So God cuts those days short. And the Lord God Almighty is cutting these days short for saints to suffer. If we don't get rescued, nobody is going to get saved because we are encircled by piranha. We are encircled by lions, by sharks. We are encircled by exploiters, opportunists. We are encircled by people that are waiting to pounce when we get finally tired into submission. Confluence, mixing Christians with unbelievers. People have already cast lots for our garments. They've already placed bets pertaining in impilo zethu. When I live to that, have already called dibs on me. They've already put a wedding gown on a bed in a strange apartment for me to just wear it and put a ring on my finger of some guy oloyang maraki muruti. I've already got people they are planning for me. I'm a daughter that want to kiss me. Because in the occult, you think this is Disney, you think it's a fairy tale. Apparently, allegedly, people can get stolen with kisses. And then after that, I will just go. Because there's something ritualistically that is being oozed into my space. You can then move it from a kiss to fornication. To put some like halitosis lips on my face. Then, like Snow White, apparently I'll wake up from the dead. Or maybe, like the princess and the frog, I'll kiss an idiot and he'll become a man. Gunama plans from the occult all over the show. From my family members, from former friends. But I'm waiting for something that finally comes. And the only reason why he took Yona 4 days ill. The reason why he took Yona 4 days to come was because he was waiting for late giving. Les zinja that had been sticking out in Motoyam on the side of the street hazarded. He was waiting for them to make like men and ask, ma'am, do you need help? Oh no, my tire is flat. I'm waiting for AA. Okay, I'll park behind you until the AA comes. Good dangerous here in this suburb. In this neighborhood. Lasanya, guys. I've had that done for me before. Where police officers parked behind me while I was waiting for a car to come. Just being gentlemanly. Now, I've also been stuck on the side of the street after having hit something on the highway. Hit something. And it went gaga. It was flat. And I was driving on a flat. So I parked on the side, hazarded my vehicle. And a man coming back from work. I used to work in Hatfield, Pretoria. A black guy coming back from work himself. I was on the M1 South to Wits University. I was going to class. I never ended up going to class that day because I got delayed by that incident. On this journey back, a black man parked his car and behind mine in the yellow lane and was like, what's giving, what's good? And I told him my tire is flat. And right there on the highway, Wakipi spare out from my car and mover and all of my jacks and everything, using some of his own tools in his own car, changed my tire, put my tire in the boot of my car, and I drove back home. At the end of that exchange, he never asked for my number, nothing. He was just like, travel home safely, bye-bye. That's called chivalry. I have experienced chivalry before and from black men. There was one as well where I poured gas, after my boyfriend used up petrol card, I poured gas and I was gonna pay with a petrol card. I saw it down here, I get swipe, but declined. Calling everyone everywhere, phone is engaged, I can't get ahead, I can't get into anybody. I'm panicking, and in my panic, this guy clearly overheard. More sighting. And I told the petrol attendants, please, I need to find somebody that's gonna come and pay the bill for me. Next thing, a guy knocked on my window, go. That was parked next to me pouring petrol. He overheard everything that was going on. He knocked on my window, go. I slide down the window. I wind down the window. He's like, what's the bill? That's all he asked. He was like, how much? What's the damage? I was like, it was 150 rand. I was like, 150 bucks. I didn't even pull that much. It was my last run before payday. I was like, 150 bucks. He was like, don't worry, I got this. You can go home. This man never asked for my number. Nothing. Black man. Because umfazi agayekelwa out on a limb high and dry like that. Well, that was when I was still in the world, long ago. The world has ever since then gone to the dogs. The world has ever since then worsened in its moral turpitude. 2 Timothy 3 has ever since then only ever waxed worse. So therefore, the only reason why God would tarry and linger when a vehicle is stuck on the side of the road on the highway, hazarding, and 4 times you drive and you see it. The only reason why he lingered it for all those 4 rounds was for you. You who is busy driving your SUV on the N1 highway seeing a woman stuck on the side of the road. You were supposed to make like those 2 gentlemen from back in the day. First one changed out my tire, the other one paid my gas bill. You were supposed to stop and be like, ma'am, listen, I went first to work, came back from work, you were still here. I went to pick up my daughter from varsity and you were still here. I went to the gym and now that I'm back from the gym and you're still here, I'm concerned, do you need help? And then I'm change the tire or with his own tow bar, I'm towing. And then the rest I will take care when I get a salary. Okay, and if he can't help, oh, that was not the only one. Yeah, then guys, I don't know what's happening. I know there was a time when my brakes were nasty, like, and I knew because they were making a funny noise, but it took me a minute to replace them. I can see why I was just hang on. Every time I would press my brake pad, It would go, it would like scratch. Clearly, I needed to change my brake pads. I was gonna take it to the end, dog. To the end. Because when I googled how much it cost to change all that stuff out, I was like, I can 8,000, I can 6,000. And then one day when I was coming back from Wits, my car just flat out stopped. Yeah, stop. I go to Town Lodge. On Hendrik Potgieter. I was in the yellow lane, hazarding. Busi, I go on Facebook. I had already called. What do you call this? I had already called. Was it the AA? And I called the towing company that comes with my insurance, so I didn't have to. No, did I have to pay? I don't know. Look, I'd already called whatever it is that was gonna service me, and they dropped my vehicle off go Mazda. Because the next day they would then do my vehicle at the Mazda, and the Mazda was not very far, but I already called a towing company. So I was waiting for a towing company, but it took a minute. But I put on Facebook in a status update. Well, yo guys, I wish you le mostrateng ke stakile monana ko pela opposite road lodge isn't far from MTN, and I had a colleague on a dula ko Sebokeng wankutla Sebokeng. Motago I get to wine as a movele down in these streets closer to work. Mara, I guess he had a motorcycle, he could afford to just live all that far away. He was my friend on Facebook. And when he saw my status update, he called me. He was like, Karabo, I was back from lectures at Wits, so it was like 8:30 going on 9 at night. He was like, road lodge, just like that. I was like, yeah, no, but don't worry, because there's AA coming, or something, some towing company. Yes, I'll be fine. He's like, okay, Sha, but let me know if you're gonna be cool. After half an hour, he called me back. Have you moved? No, it's taken a minute. Don't know what's going on. He's like, okay, Sha. 45 minutes later, 45 minutes, he parked behind me. He came in his own volition because when I said, do not take yourself out of your person. Just be better, man. It's alright. Thank you, though. Good people, like, thank you though, but don't, I don't want to impose, like, don't get yourself out of yourself. I'm gonna be good. They're coming. I rang those people for like a good 2 hours, and for the last 15 minutes, a guy had driven all the way from Sebokeng to Road Lodge, Rodipot. He drove from Sebokeng to Rodipot and parked behind my vehicle. I keep one of the hazards. I thought it was the towing company, but it couldn't have been because it was a sedan. But I wasn't scared. And then he gets out of the car and he's like, KB. And I'm like, oh, hey, Utlile, dude, no, come on, you were not supposed to come. Lo and behold, within about 10 to 15 minutes, so he didn't have to come, but he did. Within about 10 to 15 minutes, ke ha towing company etla. So this guy drove all that way and then drove all the way back home. But for him, what mattered was that a woman was in danger, a colleague, a friend, umuntu osimthandayo, utlwa buhlungu. Akashelwa. It was not about love, about romancing. It was just about ukuthlokomela umfazi. And then how did I get home? Did he drop me off at home? No. I was stuck on the side of the street. They drove my vehicle to Mazda, and then they drove me to, at the time I used to stay in Reimsig. They drove me to Reimsig. So he drove back home. Well, some towing companies might not have been AA. Saham, Ngahamba. That was chivalry. Well, I mean, unfortunately, the same person went awry on me later on because the world just went dark. Something changed, it flipped. I would go so far as to say around 2013, 14, that darkened people that were not like that originally. We're not an evil presence on the earth. It's just like, it's haughty, it's thick, it's dark, it's a cloud, it's a smoke, it's a dust cloud, it's a smoky, thick cloud of evil. And it has influenced people to doing wicked things, and I blame the adoration of witchcraft by people. South Africa, experimentation with different gods, apostatizing from Christianity has just worsened the state. So people that would, under normal circumstances, drive from Hammanskraal, Sebokeng, near on another province, just to basically rest behind you while you wait for a towing company, now today are exploited and abusive and full of witchcraft. This is the world that we're living in. So the reason why the Lord tarried, lingered, waited for all of you while you were up and down was in order that you might repent, was in order that you might make like the Good Samaritan and rescue a situation, was in order that you might see the folly of leaving a person to just merely exist and die. You are greedy, you are rapacious, you are lackluster. And so in that state, you are leaving people alone, staking them out, hoping to go to them eventually, however, not so much to rescue them, but to hijack. That's what you're doing. But precisely because all the times you went up and down the N1 highway, all the times upon going up and down the N1 highway, precisely because that whole time you were making an observation of the value of the stuck car and the driver therein. You were already plotting and scheming. If nobody comes for her, on time. If after 3 hours, akukabi nomuntu, ozomtowa lo muntu, given that it's already going to be past midnight, the likelihood that I'm going to get away with murder is high. So, I'm hijacked. I got men staking out my life. I got people literally planning to ukungijontela impilo yami yonke iphelele. Yeah, well, you missed the bus of grace because you driving up and down was God's avenue and opportunity to do a better thing by his Christians. It's written in his word that if anybody gives a glass of water to drink for any of the least of my disciples, they will surely not struggle. They will not lose their reward. Instead, you despised us in our sorrow. You despised the poor. You despised the suffering and kicked them in their teeth. And when then you despise the poor, you end up like the rich man in the flames. While Lazarus is at Abraham's bosom, you end up judged. God gave you time. But there comes a time when waiting one more day, like I said, is no longer within the character of God, the attributes of God, to be forbearing and long-suffering, not only towards his Christians, but also towards you. There comes a time when it becomes too much for Christians, and there comes a time when you get written off as a lost cause altogether. You die like Judas, having betrayed the Son of Man. There comes a time when tarrying is dangerous for both saint and sinner. That's why the rapture must happen. We are there. And so in reverting back, like to that story, where it is that my sister and my cousins picked me up from Mabetla, took me to Tladi, and for a season I was there for the holidays. And then at the end of the holidays, I then got taken to Hlongwane. And go Hlongwane, I found school uniform on the bed for me to wear. That was different from the school uniform I've been wearing all this time. Uniform yako St. Matthew's. You're going to a new school, Karabo, starting tomorrow. Y'all, you didn't consult me, you didn't tell me. Just like that. Yet again, guys. And then I found myself, this is when now my story goes back to talking about miriri. Hey, those of you that are full of control. I actually want to go use the bathroom. I need to pee. Let me go pee, come back, speak for an hour, go shower, and then finish my message. Yeah, okay. Story says, my cousins, next thing, I left with a school uniform of St. Matthew's on the bedo, and I'm now living with the auntie, right? Antwam. Now I am no longer Goha Osmamosa. I can go Jadi. So it's very fella. We are gonna paint it red. We're gonna paint it red. Like we club hoppers or something. Like, yeah, let's paint the town red like we club hopping. But instead of us club hopping, we home hopping. That's what they are. We home hopping. So I go, Bankisa ko ha auntie get drop her off. Yet again, my older sister, now she gets to stay. I go back to my auntie's house where now I'm living with my aunt, and her children, cousins, and what have you, right? Now, Kiko Dlamini, right? Ko Dlamini, I was there for, listen, I had lived Ko Dlamini a very long time, like at different spots, but it was only for about a year where I was also attending a school from where my aunt was at. So back when I was young, like I told, I've been like my mom had made me play musical chairs between so many houses when I was in creche. When I was creche age, I'd lived with my aunt before, and Osma Musa, and now I was back at my aunt's house again. There was a time in history where I was living with her as like a toddler, a very young child. Now I was a primary school kid, and this. When I was a toddler, what made me loathe moving back to my aunt's house was because my aunt was one of those, but it's okay, we got time. After all, I come here and I speak after so many weeks. Like, I spent like 2 to 3 weeks, a long form. But I've been doing shorts these days, so I might as well just keep it, because it's going to be a long time again before I do another video. When I was a toddler, living with my aunt, alright, make it like it's Toswa, guys. My aunt was loving. Make no mistake, I was not abused. She took me in. I was not treated differently from her children. She took me in as her own. And the horrors that I endured were the same horrors that her kids endured. Because my aunt was one of those urban legend aunts. My auntie, at this stage was my aunt already heavy in the church. Look, my aunt has never been born again. She's never even been a devout Catholic. She just liked church for social club. That's what a lot of older ladies are like in the black community. It's a social club, have a relationship with Mudimu. They're still full of gossip, they're still full of stunts. So that's the only reason why she's not as worldly as that. has a form of godliness but denies the power thereof. Kgale jwalo antwa. Kgale a tsibiwa for nje fela ho rata kereke mara hona motho o se bayang skele mo sa bo kereke ba hae. Not even one. Okay, and so therefore it makes sense that when I the ghost stories, because hi bani umzalwane, ha o tlo thusa bana nje fela just to make sure they come home ka nako. Hey, my aunt. To make sure that her kids came home on time. She used to tell ghost stories. And they were so scary. When I was a toddler, there was an urban legend up in those streets. I told you that Hlongwane, this was the season when Washonwa Gafunga be in the house opposite us. Bana. And later on, I would come to learn that it was human sacrifice rituals. I've already told you the story. I told you that there was a time when I used to live in Hlongwane, and there was a family whose kids we used to play with opposite. And one holiday, a girl came through who was a cousin of theirs that was my age, and we played. And in a few months down the line, Banaba Konkung would just start dropping like dominoes. The 2 boys that lived there died, including that girl that was my friend. Yeah. And then years down the line, I got born again, and the Lord told me that was a human that, like, the ononale family member rubbish, and then say ifabana to a god of sorts, and that's why it was in this season, in the first season, not the one where I was now going St. Matthew's, but the first season where I was just a toddler. Yeah, when I was living in Hlongwane, where my aunt was all about that ghost story business. That's why the second time around, not because she was abusive or mean, or not because I was like Cinderella all up in there with her kids being treated better. No, she was impartial. Mara, aseke gore tshosake eng. My aunt, una shota fela ka torch underneath her chin, and be like, woo, and then put like a sheet on her body. So long story short, I always, ever since I was a child, not anymore, right? So, but throughout my, like, let me say, rest of my primary school, not so much high school, because I said right? Now, when I was still in primary school, I always used to associate my aunt's house and neighborhood. Basically, I always used to associate it with hauntings. I thoroughly believed that my aunt's house was haunted, and I thoroughly believed that Hlongwane was haunted, and I thoroughly believed that this one double up that we used to use in order to go to the shell garage was haunted, because in order to dissuade us from using pateo, they would tell us why? Because that footpath that was close. How can I describe it? So after apartheid, they built tarred roads in some neighborhoods. Hlongwane was among the first, because it go pela diplufi go pela old bosch, so beautifully tarred, looking suburban type establishment thing. But the government couldn't get to everything. And so certain parts that needed to be tarred weren't tarred. And certain bushy areas that are opposite homes were not mowed. And so the grass would grow high and tall. Yeah, but that which was people's paths, the footpaths traveler before tarring roads, when everything was just gravel, people still maintained the use of them sometimes, because it was just easier to go there. But it became safer to avoid majek roller rapists, muggers, buggers, randos indefinitely that can pounce on you like a thief in the night, mapantiti in the street. It was safer to use the tarred routes, because there were street lights all up in that monster, and there was tar. It was safe. So in order for us to go to Old Botch Street and Komba Amatex, to go to downtown Joburg or wherever, expect shapas come around, mienda, just trek. Ingati, we are travelers before the Anglo-Boer War. Like, I'm sorry, like, no. Never expect ako na rin ke long dry, and as one ko kasi, before ba gentrify those streets, y'all know that's what to be giving those vibes, right? Before streets got gentrified with tar, you be out there using your next door neighbor's face and that fence, bobo. You be out here using your next door neighbor's fence to cross to cross over to the other side. Like, just because when I have a gate in front of your house, if you don't have a gate in front of your house, and if there is no gate behind your house, because you are yet to put a wall up or a fence, or your fence has a hole, you proper out here be getting people that in the spirit of it double up, going into umbobo wako, going through jarata ya gago, and then out of the other mbobo. They're not trying to trespass, they're just trying to get to where they're going. And according to them, your house is an alleyway, because it's there. It's available for us on Kadablapo. So people in Soweto used to get really mad, angry on some please stop like proper people would properly like traffic you'll be in the bathroom brushing your teeth. Next thing next to your bathroom window, if at all there was a person by your window, you'd be like, there was a trespasser. It was normal. Because I want you out to be using your jarata as it like what? What? No. Yeah, but some people complained. And so, a season came where, thanks to this, like, lunacy, like, this insane, this lunacy of a practice, people started erecting, like, fences and stuff. My aunt herself built, what do they call this thing? Brick and mortar, face brick. Face brick. Even though in the beginning, so that, yeah, it's hanging. Yeah. Anything could come and go. No, who's not fence? It was just bah. My aunt's house was the only fence that we had was the one separating Nkluyako next door, Linkluya Antwak, Linkluya setting the side, strata where that's the basically Nkluya higher area, yeah, no fence. So ultimately she did build a face brick wall, and she wasn't the only one to do such a thing as this in the Kasi. And so when then more and more Black people be making us a little bit of more dough. Thanks to apartheid ending, people got more mashankura, they got more opportunity. People be putting up fences. So no more double up, no more using Hlongwane shabalalas yard and just to get to the taxis faster. You're not trying to trespass, because what does that word even mean in the Kasi? Like, please, like, no, don't come here with your big English. Don't do it. Like, just don't do it. So, the double up with the Kasi, they got less and less over the months, right? Less and less, more and more people putting fences up. And when you put a fence around your house, as umakhelwane, you automatically kind of put a fence around your neighbor's house, even if they don't have a fence. So all that your neighbor has to work on. All that your neighbor has to work on now is and that's exactly what my aunt did. Our next door neighbor, Nena le fence that she had built. Not a fence, but a wall. Yeah, brick wall. What do they call this thing? Guys. Face brick. Face brick wall. And then a mortar wall. And so all of that my aunt had to build was fence mobile. Gate mobile ya face break le di gate tsa teng o investile auntie. It was before it was too hectic with crime in the Kasi. Now everybody's got high walls, even in the Kala proper. Everybody just be stabbing everybody in the eye. That's why you're gonna be dabbing. Anyway, whatever. Yeah, so more and more homes closed those footpaths for people. And so now people had to use footpaths that did not belong to any individual person. And now people had to use the path that belonged to the state, essentially, to the government. They were nobody's property. They were high grass, they were dangerous. There were stories over there of women having purses stolen from them, people getting raped and whatnot. So yeah, we get it. You're trying to protect some children from getting jackrolled, sorry. You're trying to avoid kidnappings or beatings, muggings. You're trying to avoid, anything that can go wrong in a dingy path. Yeah, proper. Like, I get it. In order to go to Old Bosch using the safe route, you would have to travel, like, proper, out from Strata Sandwaga, travel. I can't even tell you in meters how long, but I feel like I'm using minutes now. 10 minutes to get to the end of that street. And then another 10 minutes to get to the end of the next corner street, and another 10, so 30 minutes. You out here walking. Just to get to Old Bosch. There was one that enabled you to get there in just 2 minutes. Don't come at me for 30 minutes. For what? I'm not doing it. I don't appreciate 30 minutes. I'm doing 2. You could get to Pateo in just 2 minutes because it was straight onto Old Bosch. There was no house in the middle of it, even though on this side there was Pulani, like a whole bunch of water, a little bit of a river, a dam, and grass, just really high. And it was a hot spot for my criminal. It was the quickest route to go to Rockville or Lakeview, quickest route to go to Togaza Park, quickest route to go to Old Bosch, and a lot of people use it, and I don't know because Soweto is this place where people live. Motho o tla be a am sebetsing sentse ne go le go ntshoka montle mara yeah wa walk mo yeah because how far people in Soweto lived from where they worked. Okay, there was like a whole bunch of people traveling to go take taxis in the morning on Old Bosch when the sun is yet to rise, because you gotta commute real early, right, in order to get to work at 8:00. And in the season when it was still dark, people got mugged. they were like, I can't say that there were killings or shootings because it wasn't all that violent, man. There was a lot of and muggings, like, yeah. Give me gaga, I'm too busy, yeah, banka, and then of course, as a little girl, too much for your age. Yeah, it was just like a thing. And my aunt had a daughter that was 4 years older than me. A beautiful young girl too, right? And when as an auntie, you want to protect your daughter. And while boys do not have too much of a problem, food fighting, girls did. So my aunt saw it fit to basically deal with that. You can just tell a child, you could tell a child, little girl, my little child, this is the safer route for you to take to walk to school. My aunt's kids used to walk to school. I think I told you, kids, stranger things. Like everybody is on bicycles, everybody is on roller skates, not even roller blades, that's Larny. Everybody is on 2 feet. Everybody is just basically as short as East Officer traveling as tiny as that in bustling Johannesburg. So worse off then. How do you so close to school that you could walk? Are you then going to be made to walk? Never mind downtown Joburg. So my aunt's kids, my older cousin, the boy and the girl, never walk to school. They used to walk to school. Never. They used to go to school go St. Matthew's primary, right? And then ultimately would be St. Matthew's High School. And as a child, especially when you leave home a little bit late, instruction Todd Road, and walk on demarcated roads for walker, and then only half an hour to 45 minutes of school, but I safety. Walk mo food patting in this designated path with many other children going to your school. But was kind disrespect that a mother could say that. Right? It's all good in the hood. My aunt was also a teacher, but she wasn't a teacher at St. Matthew's. That's the thing. So now she had to travel and go herself. And her kids, of course, because she worked farther away than where her kids went to school. She couldn't leave at the same time as them. The kids had to, the mom left first and then they left because they were literally around the corner from school. Yeah, okay, the mother could just say, "Somebody sang the right road because it's the right thing to do." More like the other road, like, dangerous, rape. Yeah, while children can listen to instructions like those, sometimes they just take a chance anyway. I know I did. There were stories about certain double ups that I used to take as a kid, but I was like, walk here for 2 hours to get home when I can do it in half the time. So I would take some pretty dangerous paths, hoping that one path was so bad that I would literally sprint in the middle of it. It was like a bushy thicket, yeah, and I would like sprint kids were on the other side, my heavy, the blackjacks because next time I these come around and I'm glad that nothing happened to me. But I told you that story to help you understand that even if you tell a child that double up because lady and whatnot, they anyway because it's just short and it's convenient, and it's for the better majority of the time that people survive that trip, while it's only a small minority that get castigated in that joint. Yeah, well, my cousins were just like me. They took a chance anyway. They took a million, like they're playing the lottery. They just experimented. And by the grace of God, nothing bad happened to them. But my aunt was like, "I'm sorry, I knew by let's get him. I'm not going to take a chance. I refused to keep taking the chance. So she just innovated as she's sitting there as a parent. What can I do to ascertain that these bambino ones, these little ones, don't travel in this path? Understand, I don't go. At this point, when I'm living with my aunt the first time around, I'm not going to school. I'm not going to St. Matthew's. I'm just a child living with Jaradin. I guess walk into school. Like, that's how young I was when I was living with my aunt the first time around. I wasn't even in creche. So these haunted stories were being told to a person that didn't need to hear none of that. A prophet did not need to hear any of that. I don't need to be hearing none of that. Like, I don't. Mama, she just told us these stories. And then she never stopped telling them the second time around when I was living with them. But the second time around when I was living with them, I didn't want to live with her because I was like, nah, ke batlo ya mole mo kasing eloilweng, mo kasing etshosang. Like to me was osikase tusayo dog, like me tusa because my aunt never tosa. So because my cousins would travel using that forbidden road, and because the Davlapo through houses were getting closed up, my aunt then came up with a story. Because and again there was a guy, yeah, there was a guy that had been killed in that joint, and my aunt was like, as in, I know they use that funny strange path. One day it's gonna be my kids, one day I'm gonna get a report that it's one of my children. So my aunt got very innovative, because what's about short-term memory loss. That joint, it was high grass, right? And then if you were to travel a little bit further down, to a point where you could hear, like when you're walking across that, you could hear you know when there's like a river nearby, how it sounds? Yeah, you could hear the river nearby, or the water, the dam, I don't know what they call it when it's that shallow. There was a source of water nearby, and you could hear it when you were walking. If kids, like, the way that that place was so dingy, if kids were to lose their messy, we sang a funeral dirge and moved on. We did an obituary and we moved on. We did not try to get it. We didn't, because it was already scary and eerie on its own. Mara, there was a portion of that thick grass that was wide enough for a person to walk through it. Abona on the left and on the right. And it was at that place where a lot of robberies and muggings happened. And it was, a guy was also found, like a body was found. And it was at this point of finding that dead body, when my aunt innovated a story, and maybe it came from all the other ladies in the Kasi to try and discourage their children from going out like that. My aunt came up with a phantom, a mythical creature that she created in her mind called Mampotokesi. Hey guys, just thinking about it today, I'm like, yes, and guys, encourage children in the name of the Lord. Get them born again by the Holy Spirit, so that obedience of parents becomes something that is an act of righteousness and a duty to a God they know exists, that they imagine can deal them a bad blow with consequence management. Let the Holy Ghost be the spook that builds your shape into your kid, for he is not scary, instead of an actual thing that goes bump in the night, okay? Because you ain't doing children no favors. Anyway, whatever. My aunt went and innovated some mythical creature called Mampotokesi. Mampotokesi, guys. Mampotokesi was apparently a creature of the water. Of the water. Yo, guys. Mampotokesi was a creature of the water. So the gentleman that got killed, my aunt flat out twisted that story, seeing as it did not make it to the newspapers, and said that that brother that got killed in the bush and had his body left there was killed by Mampotokesi. That man was stabbed today, and my aunt said that Mampotokesi got him. Mampotokesi hana mahlo, Mampotokesi hana nko, Mampotokesi hana molomo, hana ditsebe. O na le mmele fela ba motho le tlhogo. And ha bona batho ba kena mo what she called his territory. Ha fila nkare o na le batho ba ntse ba le busy ba kena mo spacing sa hae. O vele abanke aba kenye mo ga metsi aba gwaze abanka mmele ya bona a wa gwa gore rona re thole mmele wa teng. Mampotokesi wa bolaya, and hape Mampotokesi o rata fela iseng metsi mara o rata le bosigo. So ha ntse le busy le dlala after 7. Listen to this woman. Ha le busy le dlala after 7, o tlo tswa mo metsing a dulang teng Mampotokesi a tla kwa strateng, because le fifi wa le rata a lenge wa a le kenye mo metsing a le gwaze. So let's get double up. Happy, ha letsatsi le tikela matelang high. So as to avert breakage of curfew, coming home too late after playing Chicago, and so as to make sure that my cousins don't use that double up to go to school in the mornings, because she was scared that her kids were gonna get killed. Mampotokesi, and then I ne ke sa anyway next sa sekolong. Mara Mampotokesi ne ke mo tshaba hure to a point of refusing ke ro dlala ko pela gate ya ko gae. Ke thaba ho dlala ke le ko pela gate ya ko gae, because we lived right by that bushy joint. We were not on the inside. So not every day and every night all I could think about was indaba yokuthi there is something in the water over there. Enkang batho eba bolaya eba gwaze ebe ba khwa mmele ya bona on the riverbank. I mean, it was a lie. I knew that eventually, right? Mara, it did traumatize me severely. So given that I lived in fear of this ominous haunting when I was living in Hlongwane, going back there was just, I was still a primary school child. I was still very young. This time around, I was being enrolled in a primary school. I was going to now attend St. Matthew's. primary, I was gonna walk to school with my big cousin, who was gonna first drop me off at the primary and then herself go to the high school. And if at all she used funny, strange routes, I would then be met with that fear. Like, I was just always in fear. And then over and above the right inside the house, my aunt, like, that was H. We had lots of like power cuts and different that would sometimes happen. And my aunt would just like, you'd be using the toilet. Oh, my aunt, y'all, my aunt made me scared of water, right? I would run a bath. Remember those kids that died, that were human sacrifice. One of the children passed away in a bathtub. I've told that story before, I'm not going to tell it again, right? I ran a bath one time, and then my aunt literally said that, next door. So, and sometimes it became a joke now for her. It became a joke. And now she started to say that if I'm not like whatever, like because I used to love staying in the bathtub for very long until my fingers would go like prunish, right? My fingers would prune up and get wrinkled. And my aunt was like, how can you go pateng sebaka too long? From drain and come at you. When I was go bathroom. So I would take very quick baths, in and out, dunk myself there like a donut and some chocolate, in and out, because when I was around my aunt. And then when there were lights were switched off, when there was a power cut and we were using candles to light the atmosphere, my aunt would be coming from her bedroom or go kitchening, and she would be like, yo, and you would jump and scream and cry and throw yourself against the wall and then go afterwards. And because my cousins were older than me and they realized that this was not the truth, they then got to a point now, the second time when I was living with them, where they would actually laugh at me for being scared. Okay, that was the first round when I was living there. To a point where I could even take a bath, right? At leisure. I could not just sit and marinate in a bathtub anymore. I couldn't play outside for too long. I was a shy girl anyway, so I can't blame not having too many friends on that. I was definitely scared of outside. And then there was this doll. My older cousin, she had a life-sized doll that was my height. And the first time I saw Mpopi O, yes, like it, I ran scared. I was so scared. It was so into Sidze. The only reason why I had that kind of inordinate fear over that Nompopi was because that whole place was just eerie. Ghost. There was nothing ominous about that plot. It was not built on a cemetery. Mara, there was such a big sense of foreboding for no other reason but the fact that my aunt loved horror stories. And I was a child and I believed them. So, Mpopi ole haba unta. Babatla humfa ona jwanong re ke lo dlala ka ona yo ka o balega. In spite of being scared of that Mpopi, my aunt would every so often bring it out and one time she put it, Mpopi wateng, by the door and I couldn't go in the house for as long as that Mpopi was there. Finally she moved it because I was hungry, I had to eat. Mara ke kene ko ntlong ke gogama mina ke phumula di teledi because ne ke sa batle ho kena mo ntlong because Nompopi ola no le mole ne ba le ka mo ntle bona, those wash basins sa ka mo ntle where you wash and they like, yeah, they've got an angle, a bit of an acute angle, and it's a little bit ripped. It's ripped like a person with a six-pack in order for you to put your laundry on there. Yeah, my aunt was outside, so she took for granted that she was outside, and I was outside too. It's not like she locked me out, right? She didn't kick me out and then they were in the house watching TV. Everybody was outside, and my cousin was outside, playing, and they figured, Uguti, since we're all outside, we're gonna make it impossible for Karabo to go inside the house by simply just putting Mpopi on. I know. It doesn't matter, nothing. They left it there. And then my aunt finally moved it because I was hungry. That place was just haunted. So the second time around, when then they just drove me to Dlamini and then said, you're starting a school, go St. Matthew's. I was like, so a haunted house. I didn't want to go, but I didn't have a choice. Listen, you're not going to do that to me again. You're not going to put me in a house I imagine is haunted. You're not going to tell me ghost stories about what's scary and make me avoid footpath. You are not going to tell me about Mampotokisi and make me struggle to take long baths until my fingers wrinkle. You are not going to control my life with ghost stories. And the ghost stories that I am enduring today are, Karabo, what is this Jesus Christ of yours doing? Consult a sangoma because baguloile bophelo ba gago bo stuck, bo stranded. tuwebengena tse tsa ko the occult di entse show ga o thole mosebetsi a o thole monna o thole nice ana ntho tla khona ngwetsi. They try to make me fear occult magic. They try to make me fear things that go bump in the night. Ka nnete a ke re mampoto ke se nese nnete ne le maka. It was an urban legend that my aunt used in order to disincentivize abantwana bakhe, to dissuade them from using food but early, and happy to dissuade me from using for mo tlapa sebaka se se telle sa ruri fela go bateng. Nompopi ole wang tshosa because velevele ntlo ene tshosa go fe. But there was no haunting, there was no evil in any of that. If my aunt had not instilled all that fear in me, I would have had a relatively easy time, I would not have imagined the Kasi haunted, and I would have probably played outside a lot more. But she made it a thing that goes bump in the night. She made it a ghoulish, eerie thing. It would only be once I was a teenager saying Mdala that going to Hlongwane was not a scary feat, because just like my cousins when they got older, I realized that my aunt was lying. She was basically on an agenda to control us through all these ghost stories. Well, my aunt in that time was using ghost stories, and none of them were truly scary. And now you're scaring me with true ghost stories. They're real. Like the ghost that you're scaring me with is real. It's a real mampotokesi. It's a real mermaid or a real weird man with no eyes, no nose, no mouth, no ears, just a silhouette of a body and a head. Like, yeah, real occult demons, entities, fallen spirits. They're real. This time there is an actual haunting. Dipogo, they're true. They actually are. They exist. And by Dipogo, I don't mean dead humans, just lingering spirits, diabolical, malevolent spirits that are there for no other reason but to scare human beings and to cause human beings to experiment on whatever they can experiment on in order to get rid of them, to ward them out until they are an affront to Jesus Christ. Cause human beings to enter into a great deal of idolatry in order to deal with what they call a poltergeist in their kitchens. Now I am being scared by a true mampotokesi, by a true thing that's gonna come out of a drain when I'm taking a bath. Actual demons now. But this time around I have an actual protector. You see, that's the difference between when I was a child and now that I am all grown up. When I was a kid, I had no protection against this lying myth. This mampotokesi was not the truth. And so I was never in any real danger, but the foreshadowing of what would ultimately happen in my life is here. Mampotokesi was not real, but the entities you use in the occult are. And they truly can destroy a person's life, take away fortunes. They truly can take away a person's prosperity. They can indeed take away a person's marriage. They can come in between families and sow discord. They can cause a haunting in your house, poltergeist activity. They can kill people remotely. Human sacrifice rituals. They can, just like with Jocelyn Smith, out here kill you, cut you up, and salvage your body for your light green eyes and your fair colored skin. They can bring true harm to human beings. So it's not just an urban legend or a myth anymore. That don't walk ka foot but ele Karabo, no, don't do it. Otherwise, mampotokesi gonna come for you. Because it's not disincentivizing enough for me to be told you could get mugged. If you tell a ghost story, then some children will run. Some children will avoid a short route, but that's dangerous. In favor of the long one, but that's safe. This time around, I am being pursued by true entities. A real Satan, real demons, real black magic that can really kill, that really does come out of the river, that really has no eyes, no nose, no mouth, no ears, just a silhouette and a head, that really can come out of my drain and choke me while I take a bath too long. But at the age of 26 and a half, I gave my life to Jesus Christ of Nazareth. And ever since giving my life to him, it became evident that it does not matter what height of entity you can throw in my direction, I will always have power above it. He has given me authority under heaven to trample on, listen to this, serpents, scorpions. Goodness, there's too many of them to count, so let's add this one in. All the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means harm you. You are seated in heavenly places with the man Christ Jesus. Can't nobody decimate you if I am for you. If God be for you, who can be against you? No height, no depth, no principality, no demon, no angels, nothing will be able to separate you from the love of God who are in Christ Jesus. Hauntings I don't deny exist. Eerie, creepy, like ominous mansions, I don't deny they exist. Frankly, I think one is gawking at you in broad daylight in plain sight and it's acting like it's friendly, but you're accommodating it and it's called TikTok. I keep lamenting in my shorts that TikTok is like a haunted mansion, but you see, I also keep saying in my shorts there's a reason why I don't go to TikTok, because it's a haunted mansion.